So you're going to find sources for your mini-analysis using a database. What is it and how does it work? And why? Well, I don't trust Google. If I were to type in COVID-19 masks into a Google search, I'd get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of things to read. And half of them I don't even know who wrote them. It could be a doctor, but at the same time it could be my drunk neighbor down the street. I have no clue, so I don't trust Google. Secondly, everything in a database has been peer-reviewed. That means experts in the field have read this article and have decided, yeah, that's a good article. You could use that in a college paper. And last but not least, your tuition dollars pay for the databases. They're very expensive yearly subscriptions for these things. That's why students in high school don't have access to these things, because they're very, very expensive. So how do you find articles in a database? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. First of all, you're going to start at the GRCC homepage, and under Current Students, you'll choose the library. That's easy enough. Underneath the picture, you're going to see something called Research Databases, and you're going to choose that. And my computer is not exactly flying along today because I have lousy internet here. Now, I was already in this today. Let's see if it acts right. There are 197 databases found here. That's a ton of those. Some of them are very specialized. Some of them have articles on just nursing. Some of them have articles on just things like art. I like to use the first one on the right-hand side, which is called Academic OneFile. It's very generic, so I'm going to click on that. And at this point, it's going to ask you to sign in to make sure you're actually a GRCC student able to use this. So it's going to want your last name, and I don't really know if that's been saved correctly. And then it's going to want your rater number, but don't use the W. And then just click and log in, and it will bring you to the home page of Academic OneFile, which is owned and operated by the GALE, G-A-L-E organization. So very slowly it's going to open up. Fingers crossed. Okay, sorry about this. This is what I get for living out in the boonies. This looks like a normal Google search bar. You don't want that, and I'll show you why. You want advanced search. It's going to give you 3 bars. In other words, it's like Google times 3. You can put in a different word in each bar, and I'll show you why. If I want to find something about COVID-19 and mask, I might type in COVID-19, and I'd hit the search button. And it's going to look through its database and find every article that COVID-19, those 2 words, show up in. Well, guess what? There are 7,178 articles. They call them journals here. That's a fancy word for magazines in the college world. There are 7,178 different articles. I don't have that much time on my hands, so I'm going back. Sorry, you have to start all over again. And I'll put COVID-19 again. And then of course, I was talking about masks, right? So I'm going to put mask here and do a search there. I bet I won't have 7,000 of them. No, I will have 78 of them. So that's narrowed it down quite a bit. But I still don't really feel like reading 78 articles or trying to get through all of them. So I'm going to start over again. COVID-19 in the first line. The second line, I'm going to write mask. And again, I'm just telling this database, I want you to look for these words in an article. Well, I'm kind of curious about how it changes from state to state, because not every state is the same. So I'm going to put law in there. And I'm going to hit search. By the way, when you were doing your, I think it was module 2, could have been 3, but I think it was 2, it talked about keywords. That's what that was all about. That's why we have you do those modules, so you get comfortable with coming up with good keywords to put into databases like this. Look what's happened here. I'm down to 4 articles. Now that I can handle. Earlier I found this one. It made me kind of chuckle. Passenger removed from U.S. flight for not complying with COVID-19 precautions of wearing a mask. Someone got kicked off a plane. I'm interested. So I'm going to click on that. That's the title of the article. And up will pop the article. Sometimes they're really big. This one's tiny. This is a really small article. But thought this right here was very interesting. Currently, there's no U.S. law requiring travelers to wear face masks on planes, but airlines are allowed to enforce their own policies. Since I like that, you know what I can do? I can highlight it. I can even leave notes down here. I can save that for later, so when I go back in here, I can remember, oh, that was a really cool idea. So that's a piece of information that might end up in my essay. So that's how to find an article in a database. What do you do with it? Well, you can read it, of course. You can highlight it or take notes, and then begin drafting your essay. Don't really worry about what you've read necessarily. Just start writing about, in my case, COVID-19 and people wearing masks and not wearing masks. At some point, find a place in your essay where there's something in the article, like that thing I highlighted, that will support it. And you're going to put that into your essay. Here's an example from a young lady in English 101 from several years ago. This wasn't a larger essay, but she created this paragraph that you're looking at, and the yellow sentence is something that she borrowed. She borrowed a sentence from somebody named Doble because she has put the author's last name at the end here, inside a parentheses, to give that person credit. That's called parenthetical documentation. So let's discuss what that actually means. First, let's look at documentation. You've borrowed an idea from someone who's published an article. When you borrow something, you need to give that person credit by including his or her name. You are documenting the fact that you've borrowed from someone. And parenthetical is a word that comes from the word parentheses. You put the person's name in parentheses at the end of the idea you borrowed and put it into your essay. It always goes right before the period. So let me back up. You give Doble credit because you borrowed from Doble, but you always put it right at the end of the sentence. If you don't do that, you've plagiarized. You've heard of that term before, and plagiarism will get you into big, deep doo-doo with me and the dean's office and the college. You don't want to do that. So every time you borrow from someone, you need to give that individual credit by parenthetical documentation, by giving that person's name at the end of the sentence in parentheses that says, hey, this was not my idea. I found this idea in an article, probably in a database, and I'm giving this person credit. And that's a very legal thing. So how many are you going to do in your essay? Probably one. In other words, in that 2 to 3 page essay, if you borrow just one thing and put it into your essay, you're good. If you want to do 2 or 3, that's fine. Beyond 3, that's way too much for an essay of this size. Some of you might find 2 articles that you really like. Well, if you want to do a quote from one of them and a quote from another one of them, that's fine. Just don't overdo it in an essay this size. Okay, I'm going to cut this short because the video is getting a little bit longer and I don't want to upset YouTube. So I'll finish this off in part 3 later on.